It really does feel like to me we're consistently hearing new information about the previously announced Rey Star Wars movie, and none of it is good information. Whether they're bringing in a new writer because they couldn't find a script that worked with the old writer, or they're reshuffling their release schedule and pushing back the release of Rey. But one thing that's different about this latest announcement, because in the past when they would delay the release of Rey, they would at least give some window when they expect the movie to come out, but not in this case. They're delaying it with no date as when they plan to release the movie. In fact, according to some insiders now, they're not even going to actually release the Rey movie, and instead they're just going to recycle it and just kind of use it as patchwork for some of the previously announced Star Wars movies that they do plan on moving forward with. The Rey movie is delayed again. Star Wars hits another bump according to Lucasfilm scoopers. Lucasfilm has reportedly put its Rey Skywalker-led Star Wars movie on hold, according to multiple industry insiders. Will not officially cancel the project, once touted as the next major theatrical chapter in the Star Wars saga, has been quietly moved to the back burner amid internal restructuring and shifting franchise priorities. And that is an important thing to note here. They haven't officially canceled the project as of yet, but you also have to think about it. They don't really like the canceled project. There's a lot of projects that Star Wars has previously announced they're going to move forward with that they're not actually doing anything with. Rian Johnson's trilogy is a good example of that. They announced that in the past and they haven't done anything with it since then. And as far as I know, even Taika Waititi's Star Wars movie, even he said he really hasn't done anything with the project. So they'll announce stuff because it excites shareholders, builds up some positive news about the Star Wars franchise, and then they just kind of let it wither on the vine because ultimately no one cares about what they're doing unless they're actually providing something of substance, which they really haven't done. The film, tentatively titled Star Wars New Jedi Order, was set to star Daisy Ridley in her return as Rey, rebuilding the Jedi Order 15 years after the rise of Skywalker. It was to be directed by Academy Award-winning documentarian Shimei Obaid-Chinoy, and had cycled through several writers, including Damon Lindelof, Stephen Knight, and most recently the bankers George Nolfi, according to a report by Entertainment Insider Daniel Reichman. The film has been placed on hold while Lucasfilm focuses on other projects in development. Among these are The Mandalorian and Grogu, currently in production and scheduled to release on May 22nd, 2026, and director Sean Levy's Star Wars Starfighter, which has reportedly cast Ryan Gosling and is being targeted for a 2027 release. And that's also another thing of note. The Rey movie, I believe it was announced like 5 years ago, and they haven't done anything with it since then. The Sean Levy, Ryan Gosling movie, that was a pretty recent announcement, and they're actually moving forward with it. So you can see the contrast between movies that they have plans for versus movies that they don't have planned for. It's kind of like they have an idea for a movie, so they'll announce it, and that seems to be the Rey movie, versus the Sean Levy Star Wars Starfighter movie. That seemed to be one that they had a plan for, and that one seems to be moving forward with the production. So it just kind of gives you an idea, like, just how serious they are about the Rey Star Wars movie. It seems like the only person at the studio who really wants that movie to happen is probably Kathleen Kennedy herself, because that's ultimately her creation or her legacy with the Star Wars franchise. That was something that she wanted in there, and unfortunately for her, most people didn't care for the character or how they basically what they did with the character. So no one really wants to see a Rey Star Wars movie, and high up at the company seem to know that. I'm talking high ups at Disney, so they're not really so excited about moving forward with it. But Kathleen Kennedy is insisting, and that's why they're not really stopping it entirely, because she won't let them. However, not all industry voices agree on the term on hold. Journalist Jeff Snyder has pushed back on the characterization, stating Lucasfilm doesn't have a finished script yet, so it's not on hold. It's actively being written. They're just waiting on it. His comment suggests that the project remains in development limbo rather than outright paused, but confirms the production is nowhere near starting. I mean, I would say that you could say, I mean, maybe that's just getting semantical or whatever. I think it's a fair characterization to say that the project is on hold, because, I mean, he's saying like, oh no, they're working on it right now. But I mean, he doesn't provide any information as to why he thinks they're working on it. He just knows that they've announced a writer to it, and we don't have a finished script of it. So he thinks that they're actively working on it. But as I previously mentioned, Taika Waititi was tasked with writing the script for his Star Wars movie, and he said he hasn't even been working on it. So I think it would be fair to say that that movie was on hold. But according to officially, Disney hasn't announced that movie's on hold. That's still in development because, like I said, they don't like to say that projects are canceled or on hold or anything like that. They just want to say we're working on it. And that, I mean, it's kind of like if you're asked by a superior to do a task or whatever, or what the status of a task is that you haven't done anything with, you'll just be like, yeah, I'm working on it, and then kind of leave it at that. That's essentially what Disney is doing with this stuff with the Rey Star Wars movie. The uncertainty stems in part from Lucasfilm evolving release strategy. The studio, under the leadership of Kathleen Kennedy, is now spacing out major theatrical releases and giving more breathing room between projects. There's been like 5 years since Solo came out, or actually no, probably like 6 or 7 years since Solo came out, and now we're getting the Mandalorian and Grogu. Then the next year they're getting Star Wars Starfighter. It's not that they're deliberately spacing stuff out. It's just they had nothing to release following Solo. In fact, I think they were trying to hide from theaters and focus more on their Disney Plus content because they saw that they lost money at theaters. So they're like, okay, well, let's focus on this new thing. And that hasn't been working out for them. So now they're going back to the theater. So it wasn't that it was a deliberate strategy on their part. It was them just kind of like scrambling to figure out like, what can we actually do? And they were like, okay, Disney Plus doesn't work for us anymore. So let's go back to theaters. If they could, they're releasing 2 movies in 2 years. If they could, they probably would be doing more, but they just had nothing else right now. So I don't buy that this is them doing it intentionally. I think this is them just trying to save face for the fact that they haven't been able to find something that works for them. With Disney facing pressure to revive Star Wars theatrically after a 6-year absence from cinemas, the company appears to be prioritizing proven concepts and marquee characters like the Mandalorian and Grogu. Additionally, a rumor new trilogy spearheaded by Simon Kinberg may be influencing how and when Rey's story unfolds. Sources suggest that rather than a standalone feature, Rey may be repositioned as a key character across multiple interconnected films, further delaying the timeline for New Jedi Order as originally conceived. And this was something that was announced last year about bringing in Simon Kinberg to write and produce a Star Wars trilogy. And that was one of the things that people were talking about and speculating on when it was first announced, what this will actually entail. Some of the rumors that were said in this article right here from Deadline from back in November of last year. I heard this will comprise episode 10 through 12 of the Skywalker saga that began with George Lucas's 1977 first film, which along with Steven Spielberg's Jaws reshaped the global box office blockbuster game. Insiders dispute my intel that Kinberg will continue that storyline, saying that this instead will begin a new saga and sit alongside percolating Star Wars projects with James Mangold, Shemaine Obaid-Chinoy, Taika Waititi, and Donald Glover. As usual, Star Wars or Lucasfilm and Disney are not commenting. So that was one of the rumors going on at the time, is that he's going to continue on with the whole Skywalker saga episodes 10, 11, and 12. And it makes sense if that's what he's actually going to be producing. Then you would have the character of Rey in that, and the whole thing with Rey, her solo movie was supposed to be different from all that. So right now, with a lot of this information that we're seeing coming out about it, it would make sense that Simon Kinberg's trilogy will be what they're going to be doing moving forward. And instead of having Rey have her own movie, she would just be a character within those movies. And if that was the case, maybe they could salvage the character, and that's something that they will do, because one thing is for sure, Kathleen Kennedy would not want to let this character just kind of be done with at this point, because the way it kind of ended with her, even though the sequel trilogy made money, it was very divisive for fans, and it actually had diminishing results as the series went on. So Kathleen Kennedy doesn't want to leave on that note. She wants to have a high note for Rey, the Rey character. And the only way to do that is to have a movie that with Rey as a prominent role that is successful. I don't think they're going to do that with her solo movie. So maybe you could actually find a way to make her work in a movie where she's not necessarily the main character in that. And with Simon Kinberg's trilogy is supposed to be a continuation, and then she's in the movie. It's possible that could actually happen in a positive way for them, but I think the only reason this movie is moving forward, or why they haven't canceled it outright, besides the fact that Lucasfilm doesn't like to do that, is because it would be a knock on Kathleen Kennedy's ego. Because, as I said, this is her creation for the Star Wars franchise. This was her mark on the whole legacy of Star Wars, and it's something that's a black mark on the legacy of Star Wars, and she doesn't want that to happen. So she's basically going to force them to move forward with this, or at the very least, she's not going to stop it so long as she's with the company. Now, there's been a lot of talk when exactly Kathleen Kennedy is going to retire from Lucasfilm. They're never going to fire her. It's always just going to be perceived as an amicable split, like, she decided to retire and we're happy to see her go and all that other stuff. But one thing is for sure, when Kathleen Kennedy does leave, I'm speculating that the person who is chosen to replace her will be handpicked by Kathleen Kennedy. So even if she is gone from the company, that doesn't mean her mark is gone from the company. Whoever is following her will probably just take up the torch and try to push forward with the Rey Star Wars movie. So I think this is something that's going to happen unless there's some major shakeup at the company. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen as in there's going to be a Rey Star Wars movie, but I think we're going to see more of the character unless there's just something big that happens at the company and the executives are like, nope, no more with her. We're done with all this. But let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. What should they do with the Rey character? Should they just get rid of her entirely, decanonize the sequel trilogy, or do you think they should just try to push forward with this? Also, if you haven't already, make sure you click that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest in entertainment news. And don't forget to click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.